What if the quietest girl in your village was hiding a secret so dangerous even kings feared it? What if her very heartbeat carried a truth that could shatter kingdoms? Tonight, in the smoke-choked darkness of a burning village, a secret long buried begins to claw its way free. The wolves attacked without warning, fangs flashing, claws tearing, houses collapsing into ash. Screams tore through the night. People ran, stumbled, and bled. But in the chaos, one figure stood untouched. Liora, the healer's apprentice everyone mocked for being fragile, was walking calmly through the fire. A wolf lunged, its claws raked across her arm, yet when the sparks cleared, her skin was whole. Not a single drop of blood fell. And someone noticed. From the shadows of the battlefield, a man emerged, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence heavy as thunder. The Alpha King Kaelen. His golden eyes cut through the flames, locking onto her like a predator cornering prey. The villagers whispered in terror. Why her? Why is the king looking at her like that? Liora froze, heart racing. She should have run, should have hidden, but his stare pinned her where she stood. The wolf pack stilled around him as if waiting for his command. He stepped closer, his voice a low growl, meant for her alone. You heal too quickly. You do not bleed. Tell me, girl, what are you? Liora's lips parted, but no words came. She had spent years pretending, smiling, stumbling, even bruising herself to look weak, human, ordinary. But tonight, before the king's piercing gaze, her mask cracked. A flicker of silver shimmered in her eyes. The crowd gasped. Kaelen leaned in close enough that only she could hear. His breath was warm, dangerous. You're not what they think you are, and soon, neither will they. Darkness swallows the screen. The episode ends here. The flame still smoldered when Kaelen's words coiled around Liora's ear like a noose. You're not what they think you are, and soon, neither will they. Before she could answer, the Alpha King raised his hand. The wolves halted their destruction instantly, retreating into the shadows as if he'd leashed them with nothing but a glance. The villagers, trembling and soot-stained, fell to their knees, murmuring thanks for mercy they hadn't earned. But Kaelen's golden eyes never left Liora. At dawn, she was dragged to the royal court. The throne room was a cavern of stone and firelight, where banners of crimson fur swayed like living things. Kaelen sat high on his blackened throne, his wolfish aura radiating danger. Liora was thrust before him, wrists bound in iron cuffs that seemed to hum with strange energy. The counselors circled her like vultures, their whispers sharp. She's no ordinary girl. A witch? A cursed thing? Kaelen silenced them with a single growl. His voice rumbled across the chamber, heavy with command. You heal too quickly. You walk through fire. And your eyes? He leaned forward, gaze narrowing. They burn silver when you are afraid. Gasps rippled through the court. Liora's throat tightened. She shook her head, forcing steadiness into her voice. I am human, nothing more. But Kaelen wasn't convinced. He rose from his throne, descending the steps with the slow precision of a predator. His boots echoed against the stone floor, each step a strike against her nerves. Human? He murmured, circling her. Then prove it. Bleed for me. He flicked his claw across her forearm, deliberate, shallow. Pain lanced, skin broke. But the wound sealed instantly, knitting shut before blood could appear. The room erupted in shouts. Some cried sorcery, others demanded her death. Silence, Kaelen roared, and the chamber obeyed. His face was unreadable, a war between fascination and fury. Liora's heart hammered. She hadn't meant to reveal herself. Rage burned through her at the trap he'd laid, and before she could stop it, her eyes flared silver. For a heartbeat, the chamber froze. Even Kaelen inhaled sharply, golden gaze locking with her unnatural light. The counselors staggered back in horror. Kaelen's voice dropped, cold as steel. Arrest her! Guards surged forward, spears raised. Chains clinked as they moved to seize her arms. Liora's breath caught, every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to unleash the fire clawing beneath her skin. But before she could move, a faint whistle sliced through the air. Kaelen's head snapped up. From the shadows above the throne, an arrow tore free of the darkness, hissing down with deadly precision. Its blackened tip gleamed with venom. Not at her. At him. The Alpha King. The screen cuts to black. The poisoned arrow screamed through the air, a streak of death cutting the silence of the court. Gasps ripped from every throat. Counselors scattered. Guards froze, too slow to react. But Liora didn't think. Her body moved before her mind could question why. The chains on her wrist clattered as she threw herself forward, arm outstretched. Her hand closed around the arrow's shaft just inches from Kaelen's chest. The impact seared through her palm. A venom-laced fire tore into her flesh, eating, burning, destroying. Her knees buckled as pain ripped up her arm. The smell of scorched skin filled the chamber. And then silence. Every eye in the room locked on her hand. The skin blistered, blackened, and cracked open. But before their horrified gazes, it began to heal. Tendons stitched, skin mended, the poison burned out by something deep inside her blood. Liora stared at her hand, chest heaving, as the last trace of injury vanished. Not even a scar remained. The counselors recoiled in terror. Impossible! She's cursed. A demon. Kaelen had not moved. He stood tall, broad shoulders squared, golden eyes fixed on her not with fear, but with a sharp, calculating hunger. Liora's chains clinked as she stumbled back, trembling. Her instinct had betrayed her. She could have stayed hidden, could have let the king die, could have vanished into the chaos. But she hadn't. And now, there was no hiding left. The guards shifted uneasily, some raising weapons, others backing away from her as if she were plague itself. Kaelen descended the last step of his throne, his gaze never leaving hers. The alpha aura around him was suffocating, the weight of centuries pressing into the air. He stopped in front of her, so close she could feel the heat of his breath. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and gripped the arrow still clutched in her hand. His touch lingered for a fraction longer than necessary before he yanked it free. He held it high for the court to see the blackened tip still slick with venom. Then he turned his gaze back to her, his voice echoing like thunder across the stone hall. You just caught death with your bare hand. The whispers grew frantic. No human could survive that. Not even an alpha could heal so quickly. Kaelen's lips curved into something between awe and accusation. His words were quiet but sharp enough to cut bone. You've just proved you're no human. The chamber erupted. Some counselors demanded her immediate execution. Others begged Kaelen to use her as a weapon. The guards closed in again, chains rattling, but none dared touch her. Liora's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to run, but her silver-lit eyes locked on Kaelen's golden ones. For the first time, she realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about what she was. It was about what he intended to do with her. The screen cuts to black. The chamber boiled with chaos, counselors shouting, guards hesitating, whispers of not human flooding the air. But Kaelen's voice cut through it all like a blade. Take her to the dungeons. Liora's heart dropped. Cold chains bit into her wrists as guards dragged her through the stone corridors. Torches flickered, their flames straining against a damp, suffocating chill. The deeper they went, the heavier the air grew, until even her breath felt chained. The iron doors groaned open. The dungeon smelled of rot and blood. Cells stretched into shadow, lined with prisoners whose eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dark. The guards shoved her inside and slammed the door. The clang echoed like a death sentence. For a long moment silence reigned. Then a voice rasped from the shadows of the cell opposite hers. Another one. Liora turned. A woman sat hunched in the straw, wrists chained, her skin pale as moonlight. Her eyes glowed faintly violet, watching Liora with unnerving calm. You hide it well, the woman murmured. But not well enough. He saw it, didn't he? The silver in your eyes. Liora flinched, her back pressing against the cold wall. I don't know what you mean. Laughter answered her low, bitter, too knowing. From the other cells, more voices joined in. Men with sharpened teeth. a child whose shadow stretched longer than his body. Faces half human, half something else. They weren't criminals. They were like her. "None of us belong here," another prisoner croaked. "They call us abominations, curses in flesh. But you—" He leaned forward, yellow irises gleaming. "You're different." The violet-eyed woman pressed her forehead to the bars, her voice dropping to a whisper that cut straight into Liora's chest. "You carry a bloodline older than theirs, the flame that does not die. Do you know what you are?" Liora's pulse thundered. Her lips parted, the question trembling on her tongue. "What am I?" The woman's eyes softened, almost pitying. "You are the vessel of—" Her voice strangled mid-word. A sudden crack of unseen power split the air. The woman convulsed, her body arching violently as if invisible hands were crushing her throat. Her scream was silent, her mouth gaping in horror. The violet glow in her eyes flickered, dimmed, snuffed out. Then, nothing. She collapsed against the bars, lifeless. Liora's breath caught, icy terror freezing her veins. She looked up at the guards. None had moved. None had noticed. The silence of the dungeon was untouched, as though no one but her had heard the attempt at truth. From the shadows deeper in the cell block, a whisper slithered through the darkness. "Not yet, little flame. Not yet." The torchlight flickered, and for an instant the shadows seemed to crawl toward her. The screen cuts to black. The whisper still clung to the dungeon air like smoke. "Not yet, little flame. Not yet." Liora pressed back against the wall, her chains rattling. The dead woman's violet eyes stared sightlessly from the opposite cell, her warning stolen before it could be spoken. Then the iron doors screeched open. Kaelen entered. His golden eyes cut through the gloom, scanning her like a weapon before locking on her trembling form. Guards flanked him, their torches flaring brighter as though afraid of the shadows themselves. "You don't belong here," Kaelen said coldly. "Not among these half-breeds and broken things. You're something more. And today, I'll prove it." Before Liora could protest, the guards dragged her out. The prisoner's whispers rose into a chorus of dread as she was hauled through the corridors, up toward the blinding light of day. When her eyes adjusted, she saw it. A massive stone courtyard filled with wolves and humans alike. A ritual circle was carved into the ground, its grooves filled with molten silver that glowed with an otherworldly shimmer. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, their voices sharp with fear and curiosity. Kaelen stood at the circle's edge, his dark cloak whipping in the wind. "This girl claims to be human," he declared, his voice echoing against the walls. "But lies bleed in fire. Today, the truth will answer." The guards forced her into the circle. The silver lines pulsed beneath her feet, heat prickling her skin. She clenched her fists, refusing to tremble, though her heart hammered in her chest. Kaelen stepped forward. His hand hovered above her arm, steady, deliberate. "If you are human, this will mean nothing. If not—" His voice dropped to a growl. "Then you'll never hide again." He touched her. Instantly, the silver ignited. Lines of burning light crawled across her skin, winding up her arms, her neck, her chest. Ancient runes carved themselves into her flesh, glowing like firebrands. The air roared with energy, sparks tearing free from her body as if she'd been struck by lightning. The crowd gasped. Some fell to their knees, others screamed. Liora cried out, her back arching as the runes blazed brighter, swirling into a single mark across her collarbone, the sigil of a forgotten crown. Kaelen staggered back a step, eyes wide. His lips parted in disbelief as the flames reflected in his golden gaze. "It can't be," he whispered, voice hoarse. "It's impossible." The screen cuts to black. The courtyard was silent, but for the crackle of burning runes on Liora's skin. The mark glowed like molten fire across her collarbone, the sigil of a crown long erased from history. Kaelen's words trembled through the air. "It's impossible." The silence shattered. Counselors surged forward, their voices shrill with fear. "She bears the mark. The prophecy is true. She'll bring the end of the Alpha line." The crowd spiraled into chaos. Some screamed for mercy, others for her blood. Guards struggled to hold order as wolves shifted restlessly, their instincts riled by the energy pouring from her body. A counselor in crimson robes pointed a trembling finger. "Kill her now, before she destroys us all." The cry echoed, taken up by others. "Execution, execution." Kaelen's jaw tightened, his gaze fixed on the mark still glowing on her skin. For a moment Liora thought he would agree. His eyes burned with calculation, with the weight of kingship and survival. Then his voice cut through the madness, sharp and absolute. "No!" The uproar froze. "She does not die," Kaelen growled, descending from the platform. He stood before her, his shadow falling over her trembling form. "She is mine to study, to control, until I decide otherwise." The council bristled, but none dared challenge him directly. The wolves bowed their heads, their instincts yielding to their alpha. Yet unease rippled through the crowd like a living thing. The runes dimmed, leaving Liora weak, her body trembling with exhaustion. As the guards dragged her back inside, she caught Kaelen's gaze. It wasn't triumph she saw there. It was something darker, fear hidden beneath resolve. That night the palace walls loomed heavy with tension. Whispers slithered through the corridors. The first queen returns. The flame awakens. The throne will fall. Liora lay chained in a guarded chamber, her skin still warm with the echo of the runes. Sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the violet-eyed prisoner gasping in silence, the runes blazing like firebrands. Kaelen's whisper. "Impossible." A sound broke the stillness, the faint scrape of stone. Her eyes snapped open. In the moonlit corner of the room, a section of the wall shifted. A cloaked figure slipped through, moving with the silence of a shadow. Liora's pulse spiked. The figure approached, pulling back the hood just enough for pale features to glint in the dark. His eyes gleamed not gold, not silver, but a stormy gray that seemed to hold secrets of their own. "Quiet," he whispered, cutting the chains with a blade that shimmered unnaturally. "You don't belong in this cage. Not with him." Before she could speak, his hand closed around hers, warm, steady, urgent. "Come with me if you want the truth." The hooded stranger's grip was strong, steady, pulling Liora through the secret passageway before she could protest. The stones shifted behind them, sealing the chamber in silence. The palace faded into darkness as they descended narrow staircases carved into the mountain itself. Only the stranger's torch lit their way, its flame flickering against the hood that still concealed his face. "Where are you taking me?" Liora hissed, yanking against his hold. "To freedom," he said, voice sharp with urgency. "And to the truth Kaelen will never give you." They emerged into a cavern beneath the palace, where the air smelled of damp earth and old fire. The torchlight finally revealed his face as he pushed back the hood. Storm-gray eyes, high aristocratic cheekbones, a mouth set in a line of defiance. "You," Liora breathed. She had seen sketches in books, whispers in village tales. The resemblance to Kaelen was undeniable. "You're Riven." He spoke the name like a weapon. Kaelen's brother. The one he banished. The one he fears. Her chest tightened. Banished brother? The word carried the weight of betrayal, of wars fought in shadows. Riven's gaze lingered on her, sharp and unrelenting. "I've been waiting for you, Liora, for the mark to appear, for the flame to awaken." Her skin prickled at his words. "You know what I am?" "I know what you carry," Riven said, stepping closer. His voice lowered, rich with conviction. "A bloodline older than his crown, older than the wolves themselves. You are the key to ending Kaelen's reign." Liora's head spun. Too many truths, too many lies. She had barely begun to understand herself, and now this stranger spoke of her as though she were prophecy incarnate. "I don't want to be anyone's key," she snapped. "Not yours, not his. I only want answers." "You'll have them," Riven promised. But there was a gleam in his eye that unsettled her, half hunger, half reverence. "But first you must choose." He lifted his hand, and without hesitation, bit deep into his palm. Blood welled crimson, gleaming in the torchlight. Power radiated from it, thick and metallic, making the air hum with energy. He extended the bleeding hand toward her. His eyes burned into hers, fierce and unyielding. "Swear to me," he said, voice low and commanding. "Swear to me, or die." Leora's breath hitched, caught between fear and defiance. The smell of iron filled her lungs, the weight of destiny pressing in from every side. The cavern echoed with Riven's words, low and commanding, his blood dripping onto the stone. "Swear to me, or die." Leora's chest tightened, her pulse thrumming like a drum. The scent of iron filled her lungs, thick and metallic, every drop of Riven's blood radiating raw power. Her eyes darted from his storm-gray gaze to the crimson hand he held out. She wanted to recoil, to refuse, but something deeper, a pull she didn't understand, rooted her in place. "I don't even know what you are," she whispered. "Why should I bind myself to you?" "Because Kaelen will chain you until your soul burns away," Riven said, his voice sharp with venom. "I'll free you. Together, we can end him. You've seen it yourself, he fears you." Her lips parted, trembling. It was true Kaelen had recoiled at the sight of her mark, but Kaelen had also protected her when the council demanded her death. Between two predators, she didn't know which one wanted her alive, and which one only wanted her power. Before she could answer, a growl rumbled through the cavern. "Step away from her, Riven." The shadows at the cavern's mouth shifted. Kaelen strode into the torchlight, golden eyes blazing, his presence filling the space like thunder rolling through the earth. Wolves padded at his heels, hackles raised. Riven's smirk sharpened. "Little brother, you came quicker than I expected." Kaelen's gaze flicked to Liora, his jaw tightening. "You don't know what he is, girl. He'll use you, twist you, break you." His voice hardened, a command edged in desperation. "Come to me now." Leora's heart lurched. Two brothers, two truths, both wrapped in lies. Riven's bleeding hand still hovered near, his eyes alight with promise. "Swear to me, and I'll make you untouchable." Kaelen's hand extended too, golden aura flaring. "Choose him, and you'll regret it. Choose me, and you'll live." Leora's breath came shallow. The cavern walls seemed to close in, the choice pressing down like chains around her throat. Something inside her cracked, the runes along her skin silent since the ritual flared back to life, burning so hot she screamed. Power surged through her veins, wild and uncontrollable. The ground shook beneath her feet. Then fire. A wall of flame erupted from her body, searing upward and outward, splitting the cavern in two. Heat slammed into both brothers, forcing them back. The wolves howled, retreating. Sparks rained from the ceiling, the cavern trembling under the force of her outburst. Liora stood at the center, eyes blazing silver, flames roaring like a living beast at her command. For the first time, neither Kaelen nor Riven could control her. The cavern roared with fire, every stone crackling under the heat of Leora's power. Flames coiled like serpents, parting Kaelen and Riven as though the world itself refused to let them near her. Leora's chest heaved, silver eyes blazing as molten light danced across her skin. She didn't know how to stop it, didn't even know if she wanted to. For the first time, she wasn't prey or pawn. She was something else. "Impossible," Riven spat, shielding his face from the fire. "She is the flame-bearer." Kaelen's jaw clenched, his golden eyes fixed on her with a mixture of awe and dread. "No," he growled, almost to himself. "That bloodline was destroyed. It has to be." But his words drowned beneath a surge of heat as Leora's scream tore through the cavern. The fire shot upward, blasting a hole through the ceiling. Moonlight poured in, bathing her in silver. Far above, watchful eyes caught the blaze. Scouts of rival packs, rogue clans hidden in the forests, and worse enemies who had waited centuries for this very sign. By dawn, the story was already spreading across the kingdom. The flame-bearer lives. The first queen's heir walks again. Whispers turned to shouts. Wolves sharpened their blades, vampires stirred from their ancient crypts. Even humans, once indifferent, spoke the name with fear. And in the palace council chamber, chaos reigned. "She's a weapon," one elder barked. "She's a curse," another howled. "She must be destroyed before the prophecy." "Enough." Kaelen's voice cut through, low but dangerous. He stood before the council like a storm barely contained. "She belongs to me." But even as he spoke, Riven's followers spread word through the shadows. "The true queen rises. The throne is ours to take." And Liora? She stumbled through the forest that night, alone, her body trembling after the flames had finally died. Her palms still glowed faintly, faint wisps of smoke curling from her skin. Every heartbeat echoed with questions she could not answer. What am I becoming? Why now? Exhaustion dragged her down. She found shelter beneath an ancient oak, curling against its roots as sleep overcame her. And then dreams. A woman appeared in the darkness, tall, silver-haired, her eyes the same luminous silver that burned in Liora's. Her gown shimmered with firelight, though no flame consumed it. She reached out, her hand tender, her voice both command and caress. "My daughter," the woman whispered. The dream shattered into silence. Liora awoke, gasping, the echo of that word clawing at her chest. "Daughter." The word still burned in her ears. "Daughter." Liora sat upright beneath the oak, her breath ragged. The dream clung to her like smoke, heavy and suffocating. She pressed her palms against the earth, but even the cool soil could not ground her. The silver-haired woman's voice echoed within her mind, velvet and steel at once. And then the world blurred again. She wasn't awake, not fully. The trees dissolved into flame. The ground cracked beneath her feet, molten rivers of fire carving through the earth. She stood in a vast hall of obsidian stone, crowned with torches that burned blue instead of red. The silver-haired woman appeared once more, her gaze piercing. She was not just regal, she was terrifying. Her presence filled the chamber, her voice curling like smoke around Liora's ears. "You are not my daughter," the woman said, her tone carrying centuries of sorrow and rage. "You are me, the vessel of what was stolen, the fire that once ruled these lands." Liora's throat tightened. "No, I'm not you. I'm not. You are the mother reborn. When the vessel awakens fully, the curse will break." The woman's hand rose, fingers brushing the air as though blessing or condemning her. "And with it the Alpha bloodlines will fall, every last one." Liora stumbled back, her chest heaving. "I never asked for this." The woman's silver eyes softened, almost pitying. "Curses do not ask, they are carried." The floor split open beneath Liora, flames surging upward. She screamed and woke. The forest was still dark, dawn yet to touch the horizon. But she was not alone. Kaelen stood before her, his cloak billowing, golden eyes burning with something between fury and despair. His soldiers lingered at the edge of the clearing, unwilling to step closer after what they had seen in the cavern. "Kaelen," she whispered, her voice raw. He moved closer, each step slow, deliberate. His gaze locked on hers as if searching for a truth he didn't want to find. "I felt it," he said, his voice low. "The fire. The prophecy." Liora's stomach twisted. "You don't understand." "I understand enough." His tone cracked with weight, with the unspoken knowledge of the dream she thought only she had seen. "The first queen's curse, reborn in you." Liora staggered back, shaking her head. "I'm not her. I'm me." But Kaelen dropped to one knee before her, his expression haunted, his hands curling into fists against the earth. His golden eyes flickered with something sharp and pained. "Then you're my doom." The word struck Liora harder than any blade. "Then you're my doom." Kaelen's head was bowed, his fist pressed into the earth as though anchoring himself to a reality that crumbled beneath him. Around them, his soldiers shifted uneasily, torn between reverence for their king and fear of the woman who had summoned flame from nothing. Liora's lips parted, but no words came. For once, silence was her prison. Finally, Kaelen rose to his full height. The raw torment in his golden eyes was a storm she had never seen before. "You leave me no choice," he said, voice thick with restraint. "Either I end you and save the throne, or I protect you and condemn us all." The soldiers inhaled sharply. The air itself seemed to still, waiting for his decision. Leora's pulse pounded. "You think this is about your throne?" Her voice trembled with fury. "You think my life is a calculation on your scales of power? I never asked for this curse." Kaelen's jaw clenched, his hand twitching near the hilt of his blade. For a single agonizing moment she thought he might strike her down, but instead he turned away, roaring toward the trees, his fury shaking the clearing. "No one touches her," he barked at his men. "She is under my protection. If she falls, it will be by my hand alone." Gasps rippled through the ranks. Protecting her meant defying the council, spitting in the face of tradition. That night, Kaelen locked himself in the war chamber, firelight painting his face in shadows. Maps lay strewn before him, but his eyes were far away. Two paths stretched before him: kill her and keep the kingdom safe, or protect her and gamble against prophecy itself. He poured wine into a goblet, hands trembling. "If I choose her, I lose everything I swore to protect. If I lose her, I lose myself." But the choice was stolen from him. The war horn blared through the night, echoing across the stronghold. Soldiers thundered past the chamber doors, shouting of betrayal. Kaelen stormed outside to find chaos in the courtyard. The council, his own advisors, stood in defiance, armored and armed, their banners raised high. At their center, bound and dragged forward, was Liora. Kaelen's blood iced. The High Chancellor sneered from atop the steps. "The council will no longer watch you endanger our kind with your weakness. The girl is bait, and you, my king, are the prey." The coup had begun. The courtyard burned with torches and treachery. Soldiers Kaelen had once sworn brothers now stood in lines against him, their blades gleaming with silver, the only metal that could pierce an alpha's hide. And at the center, Liora knelt bound, her wrists bruised by iron cuffs. Her eyes locked on Kaelen with a fury that dared him to act. The High Chancellor raised his staff, his voice echoing like thunder. "King Kaelen has chosen corruption. Tonight we restore the throne to purity. The girl dies, her curse dies with her." Kaelen bared his teeth, a growl rumbling through his chest. "Touch her," he snarled, "and I'll paint these stones with your blood." But before he could move, pain seared through the air. Leora's body convulsed, fire exploding from her chest like a living storm. The runes Kaelen had once seen flickered alive, burning across her skin as the courtyard blazed red. Soldiers screamed, dropping their weapons as flames roared high enough to blacken the banners above. Kaelen shielded his face, torn between awe and horror. The fire wasn't controlled. It was raw, wild, hungering for destruction. And Liora was losing herself to it. Her voice was not her own when she screamed. It was layered, ancient, the voice of something far older than her flesh. "Burn them all!" Kaelen leapt forward, trying to reach her, but another voice cut through the chaos. Smooth, cold, calculated. "Enough!" From the shadows emerged Riven, Kaelen's exiled brother, his silver hair gleaming in the inferno. While Kaelen shielded his men, Riven walked straight through the fire, untouched, his gaze fixed only on Liora. Her flames flickered, bending toward him like they knew his name. "See?" he said softly, almost reverently. "She belongs to me. The vessel was never meant for a king's leash. It was meant for a conqueror's mate." And before Kaelen could stop him, Riven pressed his hand to Leora's cheek. The fire stilled. Her eyes widened, as if some buried part of her recognized him. "No!" Kaelen roared, fury shaking the ground. "You will not take her?" The courtyard fell into silence as Kaelen stepped forward, golden eyes blazing. His sword gleamed as he drew it, pointing the tip straight at his brother. "For her fate," Kaelen growled, "I challenge you to a duel." Riven's lips curved into a dangerous smile. "So be it, brother." The council cheered, the flames roared, and the kingdom held its breath. The courtyard held its breath. Kaelen and Riven stood across from each other, blades drawn. the flames Liora had unleashed still smoldering against the stone walls. Every soldier, every counselor, every servant had gone still, pulled into the gravity of what was about to unfold. Brother against brother, Riven sneered, silver eyes glinting. It was always going to end this way. Kaelen's grip tightened on his sword, his golden gaze never wavering. You want my throne? Then bleed for it. Steel rang against steel as the first clash resounded through the night. Sparks flew as the brothers struck with feral precision wolves in human flesh, every swing of the blade carrying the weight of centuries-old bloodline. The crowd shouted, some cheering Kaelen, others whispering Riven's name, but all too afraid to intervene. Liora stumbled to her feet, her restraints shattered in the chaos of her earlier firestorm. She could barely breathe as she watched Kaelen and Riven tear into one another. Their movements were blurs, each strike meant to kill. She felt it in her bones. This was no ceremonial duel. This was war. Kaelen landed the first wound, his blade slicing across Riven's shoulder. Blood dripped down, black under the torchlight, but Riven only laughed. Still soft, little brother. With a snarl, he spun, his blade grazing Kaelen's ribs. Both staggered, but neither relented. Liora's heart pounded. Their fight wasn't just for dominance, it was for her fate. And with each blow, she could feel the strange fire within her pulling, as though it wanted to join the fight, to decide for them. Then the earth shuddered. A fissure split the courtyard stones, silencing the crowd. From the crack seeped black smoke, thick and writhing, curling upward like living shadow. The temperature dropped, frost forming on the edges of Liora's flames. Kaelen and Riven froze, blades still locked as figures began to emerge from the rift. They were not wolves, not men, not anything the kingdom had seen in centuries. Shadow creatures, taller than both alphas, their bodies twisted and shifting, their eyes glowing a hungry white. They moved like whispers given form, ancient, predatory, wrong. Panic erupted. Soldiers dropped their silver blades and fled. Counselors screamed. Kaelen pushed Riven back, both momentarily united by the horror spilling into their midst. Impossible, Riven muttered. They were banished before even the first queen. One of the creatures glided forward, its face more smoke than flesh. The others snarled, but it stilled them with a single gesture. Slowly it turned its head not to Kaelen, not to Riven, but to Liora. Her breath caught as it moved toward her, kneeling on one knee, bowing its misshapen head in reverence. When it spoke, its voice was layered like thunder rolling through caverns. Queen returned. The courtyard went silent. All eyes shifted to her. Kaelen's grip faltered, and Riven's smirk twisted into something darker. Silence crushed the courtyard, broken only by the faint hiss of the shadows seeping through the fissure. Liora stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. The bowing creature remained kneeling, its form shifting like smoke caught in a storm. Behind it, the others rippled restlessly, their glowing eyes fixed on her as though she were a beacon. Kaelen's sword lowered slightly, though his muscles were coiled tight, golden eyes darting between the shadows and Liora. "What trick is this?" he demanded, voice sharp. "What do you want with her?" The kneeling shadow lifted its head. When it spoke, its voice vibrated through the stones, rattling windows, making torches flicker. "We once served the first queen, and we have come to awaken her again." The words hit Liora like a blade. Her chest tightened, fire sparking beneath her skin. She staggered back, shaking her head. "I'm not her," she whispered. "I'm not." Riven stepped forward, his silver eyes gleaming with something between fascination and hunger. "You hear that, little brother? Even the oldest of monsters bow to her. The throne has already chosen its queen." Kaelen's jaw clenched. He moved instinctively to place himself between Liora and the creatures. "You won't touch her." The shadow creature tilted its head. "It is not for you to forbid. She is bound. Her fire is ours. Her blood is ours. Her soul belongs to the Queen Eternal." The words seemed to unravel something deep inside Liora. Her skin burned, glowing faintly as if embers swirled beneath it. Whispers curled in her ears, voices not her own, layered and insistent. Awaken. Rise. Remember. Stay with me, Liora, Kaelen urged, reaching for her. But when his hand touched hers, she flinched as though burned. Her eyes blazed with a fire not entirely hers. Riven's grin widened. Yes. Let her wake. The ground quaked again. The other shadows dropped to one knee in unison, their voices blending into a guttural chant. Ancient syllables rolled into the night air, vibrating through bone and blood. Liora's lips parted. At first it was a gasp, a desperate attempt to breathe against the pressure swelling inside her. But then, words slipped out, words she didn't understand, words older than the kingdom itself. Her voice was layered, deeper, regal, echoing like a crown forged in sound. My children, your queen has returned. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Some fell to their knees. Others fled screaming. Kaelen's face went pale, and even Riven, bold as ever, faltered for the briefest moment. But Liora, her eyes no longer her own, stood at the center of it all, her voice carrying the weight of the first queen herself. The last echoes of "My children, your queen has returned" still rippled through the night when silence crashed down like a suffocating weight. Every gaze was fixed on Liora, her body haloed in faint flames, her eyes burning like twin suns. But behind that fire her true self thrashed in terror. Inside her mind it was chaos, walls of fire and voices colliding. She screamed wordlessly in the dark of her thoughts, clawing for control. This isn't me. I won't be her. Yet the queen's presence pressed harder, ancient and merciless, forcing her lips to shape words that weren't hers. Kaelen moved first, his voice sharp, desperate. Liora, fight it. You're stronger than her. His hands trembled at his sides, torn between reaching for her and drawing his blade. He could feel her slipping further into the queen's hold, and with every second, his fear thickened into rage. Riven, by contrast, stepped closer with an eager gleam in his silver eyes. Don't fight it, little flame, embrace her. With me at your side, you'll be unstoppable. We'll burn this kingdom to its knees. He lifted a hand toward her, palm outstretched, as though offering himself to both vessel and queen. The shadows hissed and swayed, their chant rising again, urging the transformation. The air grew heavy, scorching as cracks of fire licked up Liora's arms. She stumbled back, clutching her head, her voice breaking free at last, this time her own. I don't want this. The flames burst outward in a shockwave, throwing Kaelen and Riven in opposite directions. Screams erupted from the onlookers as the courtyard split, stone cracking under the heat. Liora's body flickered between two selves, her trembling form and the regal silhouette of the first queen, layered one over the other. Kaelen pushed himself up, his jaw tight with resolve. I will not lose her, not to prophecy, not to you. His gaze cut to Riven. Riven wiped blood from his mouth where the blast had struck him. He smirked through the pain. Then prepare to, brother, because she isn't yours anymore. She belongs to the flame. Liora screamed again, this time so loud the torches along the walls exploded. Her body arched backward, fire climbing higher, swallowing her frame until she was only a figure of light. The shadows dropped flat in reverence. Kaelen lunged toward her, shouting her name. Riven reached too, teeth bared, determined to seize her power before it was lost. But neither brother touched her, because in the next breath Liora vanished in a pillar of fire that split the night sky, leaving nothing but scorched stone where she had stood. The courtyard still smoked where Liora had stood. The pillar of fire was gone, but its echo lingered, burning itself into every witness's memory. Kaelen's fists trembled as he stared at the scorched ground, heart pounding with the void her absence left. He could still smell her flame, faint but real, carried by the night wind. She isn't gone, he growled, his voice low, almost feral. She can't be gone. Riven pushed himself upright, blood streaking his face, but his grin sharp as ever. You're right, brother, she lives, and I'll find her before you do. With that, he melted into the shadows, his laughter trailing like a blade across Kaelen's skin. What followed was a fevered chase that spanned kingdoms. Rumors spread faster than horses could run. The flame-bearer walks again, a girl of fire, the first queen reborn. Some said she was a savior, others a curse. Villages shut their gates, temples began chanting prayers against her, and warriors, wolf and human alike, prepared to hunt her as bounty. Kaelen raced through forests, deserts, and storm-swept coasts, chasing whispers of her fire. Every clue was half-truth, every rumor a step too late. Yet his bond to her, the strange tether formed when he first touched her, pulled him onward, guiding him like a compass in the dark. Riven, cunning as ever, used a different method. He sowed fear, commanding rogues and outcasts to seek the flame-bearer in his name. To him, every terrified whisper was a map. He didn't want to save her. He wanted to claim her before Kaelen could. At last, both brothers' paths converged. Beneath the shadow of mountains long abandoned, they found it. The ruins of the first queen's palace, shattered stones swallowed by vines and moonlight. It was here, in the cradle of forgotten power, that the air burned with her presence. Liora lay among the broken columns, her body half-conscious, glowing faintly as though her blood was molten gold. Every breath she drew sent ripples of heat through the earth. She was no longer merely Liora, something vast and ancient stirred within her, straining to wake. Kaelen dropped to his knees beside her, his hands trembling over her form but too afraid to touch. "Liora." His voice cracked, softer than it had ever been. "Stay with me." Riven stood across from him, eyes wide with triumph. Of course, this is where she belongs. The queen is reclaiming her throne. Before Kaelen could answer, the ground beneath them shuddered. The ruins groaned, stones grinding against each other as though stirred by an invisible hand. Dust fell in showers, vines snapping like dry twigs. Liora's body arched, her eyes flying open, blazing with fire that was not her own. The palace responded. The ruins tore free from the mountain, rising upward, stone upon stone, pulling into the sky. Ancient walls reformed, towers of fire and shadow climbing higher with every heartbeat. And from Liora's lips came a voice not hers, echoing through the night like thunder. "The queen awakens." The palace soared higher, stone and fire weaving themselves into a fortress suspended in the night sky. Below, the kingdoms watched in awe and terror, torches flickering in the valleys as horns of warning sounded. Above, Kaelen and Riven clung to the crumbling edges of a reforming balcony until the structure steadied beneath their weight. At the heart of it all stood Liora, or rather, what she had become. Her hair burned like liquid flame, her eyes molten gold with no trace of mortal hesitation. The power that pulsed from her bent the air itself, every breath she drew reshaping the ruins into the grandeur of a palace long lost. She was not the girl mocked as too ugly, nor the uncertain bride forced into Kaelen's court. She was a monarch reborn. The first queen had returned. When she finally spoke, the sound was a chorus, Liora's voice layered with something older, sharper, divine. "The wolves were never meant to rule. Their bloodlines are theft, their crowns stolen from me. And now I take back what is mine." Riven fell to one knee, eyes glimmering with hunger. "Yes, my queen. I will be your sword. Together we can end Kaelen's reign and bring the world to heel." Kaelen's gaze hardened, but his voice shook as he answered. "Liora, fight her. Don't let this spirit consume you." The queen's golden eyes flickered toward him, unreadable. For the briefest heartbeat, a flicker of Liora seemed to tremble within, then it vanished beneath the weight of centuries. "You would beg her to resist?" The queen's laughter rang through the halls of her rising palace. "Fool. She is me. There is no separation. The vessel and I are one, and with her flesh, I will unmake the line of Alphas." Kaelen drew his blade, but his hands would not steady. The prophecy was clear. If she awoke, she could end wolf rule forever. Killing her was the only way to protect his throne, his people. Yet as he looked at her, radiant with power, his chest ached with the truth he could not deny. He had already fallen for her, long before the fire. The queen noticed. Her smirk was cruel, predatory. She stepped closer, her footsteps echoing like the toll of a war drum. "You cannot kill me, not because I am beyond you, but because your heart has already chosen me." Kaelen swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I will never betray my crown." She stopped before him, tilting her head with something that almost resembled pity. Then, with deliberate slowness, she reached up, cupping his jaw in a hand hot enough to sear. And she kissed him. It was not Liora's kiss, soft, hesitant, human. It was the kiss of a queen mocking him, of fire branding his lips with defiance. When she drew back, her smile was both triumphant and merciless. "Even your heart," she whispered, her voice a blade in his ear, "betrays your crown." Kaelen staggered back from the kiss, his chest burning with more than just the sear of her touch. His sword lowered despite himself, trembling between loyalty and love. The queen wearing Liora's face, Liora's body stood radiant, untouchable, her golden eyes glinting with a cruel knowledge of his weakness. "Your crown is already broken," she mocked. "The Alpha of Alphas falters before me." Before Kaelen could answer, Riven stepped forward, bowing low, but with a wolfish grin. "My queen, why waste time with him? He clings to dying traditions, but me?" His eyes flickered with greed. "I see what you are, what we could become. Share your throne with me, and I'll ensure the wolves kneel or burn." The queen regarded him coolly, her silence deliberate. Then she turned away, her gown of flame trailing as she ascended her throne of risen stone. Kaelen's hands tightened on his blade. He wanted to deny her words, to deny the pull inside him, but then a whisper, soft and ancient, brushed against his mind. "There is a way, if you would dare pay the price." That night, when exhaustion dragged him into uneasy sleep, the whisper became a vision. A hooded figure stood in a hall of shadows, the air thick with the scent of old blood and oaths unbroken. "You seek to save her vessel," the voice intoned, though no mouth moved. "There is only one path. You must surrender your Alpha's power willingly. Strip yourself of the wolf that defines you and offer it to the fire. Only then can she be unbound from the queen." Kaelen's breath caught. To give up his Alpha bloodline was to betray every wolf under his command, to abandon the crown and the throne that bound their fractured world. But the image of Liora laughing softly before the fire in the early days, hesitant yet fierce, rose in his mind. Was saving her worth dooming them all? He woke in the cold dark of the queen's palace, drenched in sweat. Across the chamber, Riven lounged like a predator at ease, smirking. "You're quieter than usual, brother. Perhaps you've finally realized. Power is not meant to be sacrificed. It's meant to be taken. Share her throne with me and I'll let you keep your pride, even if you lose your crown." Kaelen's jaw tightened, his silence betraying his torment. He couldn't tell Riven what he had learned. Not yet. That night sleep claimed him again. But this time the dream was different. He stood in a field of fire, yet the flames did not burn. And through them walked Liora, not the queen, not the vessel, but Liora herself. Her hair wild, her eyes desperate, her voice raw. "Kaelen," she whispered, clutching his arm with trembling hands. "Don't do it. Don't save me. If you strip yourself of your power, you'll damn us all." Her plea cut deeper than any blade. Kaelen woke with a gasp, the echo of Liora's desperate voice still burning in his chest. "Don't save me, don't do it." The words gnawed at him, yet every instinct, every pulse of his heart screamed otherwise. He could not let her drown in the queen's fire, not while he lived. The throne room of the ruined palace was cloaked in a crimson dawn. The queen sat draped in living flame, her golden eyes cold and eternal. Wolves knelt in forced obedience, their wills shackled by her presence. At her side, Riven stood proudly, lips curved into a smug half-smile, a shadow of loyalty masking his hunger. Kaelen stepped forward, sword sheathed, his voice cutting through the silence. "Take me instead." The queen's gaze narrowed. "You offer yourself so freely? You would give your throne, your power, your bloodline, all for this fragile vessel?" He shook his head, jaw clenched. "Not my throne, not my crown, my life." Gasps rippled through the hall. Even Riven's smirk faltered. The queen rose, her fire dimming slightly as if curious. Your life is nothing compared to the power you carry. The blood of the Alpha of Alphas is worth far more than your breath. Still, sacrifice has weight. Before the court, Kaelen drew his dagger. Without hesitation, he slashed across his palm, letting his lifeblood drip onto the black stone. The floor drank it greedily, glowing faintly with runes older than wolves. A sudden scream tore from Liora's lips as her body arched. The fire surrounding her flickered violently, weakening. For the first time since her possession, her own eyes, blue, fierce, defiant, shone through. "Kaelen, what have you done?" she rasped, fighting the queen's grip from within. The vessel cracked. Shadows writhed in agony as his sacrifice burned against them. The queen staggered, her voice distorted, her control slipping, but then laughter. Low, cruel, and triumphant. Riven moved. In one swift motion he drew a silvered blade, its edge glinting like betrayal itself. He stepped behind Liora as if to steady her trembling frame, then drove the blade straight through her side. Her scream split the hall, echoing with both her voice and the queen's. Fire erupted wildly, scorching stone, shattering pillars. Wolves scattered in terror. Kaelen roared, shoving through the flames, but Riven's grip was already on the hilt, his eyes alight with madness. "You thought you could choose between us, brother?" "No. Her power was never yours to save. It was always mine to take." The queen's laughter mixed with Liora's cry, a horrifying chorus. Her body convulsed, fire consuming the wound, not sealing it, but twisting, reshaping. And for the first time, Kaelen realized his sacrifice had not saved her. It had only weakened the barrier keeping her from being destroyed or reborn into something neither human nor wolf. Liora's body went limp in Kaelen's arms, her skin cold despite the embers still coiling beneath it. Her lips parted, and in the queen's voice, the dreadful words echoed. "Now the vessel breaks." Kaelen's heart thundered. Around him, wolves cowered, the hall half ruined by fire and blood. Riven still gripped his silvered blade, but his triumph was short-lived. The fire that poured from Liora's wound did not consume her. It crawled up his arm like a serpent, sinking into his veins. He screamed, staggering backward as the queen's shadow swelled, feeding on his ambition. His body convulsed, twisting under the weight of power not meant for him. "Yes," he shrieked, though his voice was already warping. "Give it to me. I will be the king who ends the Alphas." Liora's eyes snapped open. For one heartbeat, they were not blue, not gold, but pure white flame. A silence fell across the hall, then her voice rang out, layered with her own and the queen's. "No one decides my fate. Not you, not destiny, not even her." The fire erupted. It wasn't the queen's power anymore, it was Liora's. Her body blazed like a living star as she wrenched the queen's spirit from within, dragging it into the open. The shadows shrieked, clawing at stone and sky, but she pulled harder, until the queen's form, a towering silhouette of flame and wrath, stood outside her. Kaelen reached for her, but the heat drove him back, searing his flesh. His strength waned. His lifeblood already fed the runes beneath the palace. With a cry that shook the heavens, Liora turned her fire upon Riven. His scream split the night as the flames devoured him, not swiftly but utterly, body and spirit both unraveling until nothing remained but ash. The queen roared in fury, striking against Liora's blazing form, but the vessel would not bend again. "You were my daughter," the queen hissed, voice echoing across realms. "I am not your daughter," Liora spat, fire surging higher. "I am your end." She unleashed everything. The palace shattered as the queen's spirit burned, shrieking, collapsing into sparks that scattered across the dawn sky like dying stars. When it was over, the ruins smoldered. Wolves lifted their heads in awe, whispering her name as if it were a prayer. But Liora did not stand triumphant. She fell to her knees beside Kaelen, his body pale and weakening, his blood still marking the ancient runes. "Stay with me," she begged, pressing her hand to his wound, tears cutting through soot and ash. For a long moment, he did not move. Then, slowly, Kaelen's eyes fluttered open. Relief broke across her face until she froze. His eyes were not the same. Amidst their storm-gray depths flickered a faint, unnatural silver glow, the very light the queen carried. Leora's breath caught. No, it can't be. Kaelen's lips parted, his voice hoarse but laced with something not his own. The vessel breaks, but the flame always finds another.